Hey guys, it looks like we're live, and as you all aware, I'm Terry from Mr. Perfect, founder, CEO, a number of other roles. This is TRH, the Reconnection Hour, brought to you by Mr. Perfect. As you're probably aware from the guys and girls who've watched it in previous weeks, this is your online barbecue. We like to think about it without the snacks. We'll be chatting to health professionals, some of our own barbecue hosts, other people doing incredible things in the world of connection as well for the betterment of mental health. So I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of an update of the week that has been for Mr. Perfect broadly. We had our board meeting this week, which we have every couple of months, which went really, really well. Lots of great updates, lots of great numbers, stories, people accessing our barbecues, and some exciting new ones coming as well. I think we've got 3 new starting this month, probably another 2 next month as well. So watch this space. A couple of announcements to come as well, which will be an event in Sydney in June, but we'll update you on that. And also a bit of a announcement about a co-branding kind of exercise we're doing, a launch. I won't say too much more, but I think everyone will be suitably happy with it. The other thing I was going to talk about, just a little bit of a personal update. I had my first ever tele-psych appointment this week. So telemedicine, telehealth, whatever you want to call it, with my psychologist. Not seen him for a long time. And we did it over that. And it made me think, why did we never not do this over a Zoom, Skype, whatever you want to call it? And it was brilliant. A bit weird the first few minutes, but then as we got into it, it made me think, wow, this is there's connection there at your fingertips as well if you need it with health professionals. I also had a great weekend, a bit of reflection with my kids. My wife was away and really connected properly to them for once. I say for once, but for once I actually was present, really had a great weekend with them. And even my wife texted me when she got back and said they're happy as anything. And we just had a cracking weekend, which was really good for me. And pat myself on the back for something, which is good. Now, it has left me pretty tired though, looking after the kids, and I had them all day today. Thursdays is my day, and needed a couple of coffees to get through with that tiredness. So it seems relevant that tonight's guests are the founders of the 100 Coffee movement, and the relevance will become clear. They're doing something very, very, very cool. It's all about connection. So I'm going to bring them on and not say too much more. So here we go. Welcome to Chris and Simon from the 100 Coffee movement. How you going, guys?
Thank you, Terry. Good. How are you?
Very well. Very, very good. I wanted to, I was going to do a bit more of an intro about you guys, but seeing as there's 2, and I'm sure you'll be speaking a lot more than me. So I was keen to let you guys do big intro for us, what you're doing it and why you're doing it as well, because it really did resonate with me when we got in touch.
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, good evening, everyone who's online with us. So I'm Chris, the co-founder and CEO of the 100 Coffee movement. And yeah, I guess if I take you back to 2016, I was going through quite a difficult year. I had a relationship which wasn't going well for me. I was working in a job that didn't really align with my values, and I really felt quite disconnected from other people. I was lucky to have a best friend at the time, who's still my best friend, and we talked about setting some goals. And one of those goals was to meet 100 new people. And I set that goal because I've always really valued human connection. I was always the person who knew everyone's name at the supermarket and talked too much in class at primary school. And yeah, so I set out on this journey to meet 100 new people. And over that journey, I learned a significant amount about the power of human connection. And it really changed my life. And towards the end of the project, I met Simon. And yeah, we talked quite a lot. We met at a Melbourne social enterprise meetup called Melbourne Soup. And yeah, we talked about wanting to do more in the human connection space and trying to tackle loneliness. And yeah, we kind of got together. Simon has a master's of positive psychology. I'll let him introduce himself properly. But yeah, we said, look, we really want to turn this into more of more from just my own individual project, which is great, and people resonate with that, but also to try and tackle loneliness and really think about how we could work with organizations or work with schools or work with universities in that space. So, yeah, we started to do some workshops and programs and some events, and yeah, we're very early stage, but really building out what we're doing. And I'll let Simon talk to more of that and to introduce himself. So,
yeah, welcome, Simon.
Chris, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so how I met Chris was, as you said, a bit of a crazy story of connection. Chris is one of those guys who's very outgoing, and I was by myself at a social impact event and kind of looking around for someone to latch onto. And Chris was very friendly, and we just immediately got along. He told me a bit about his story, and I was wowed, to be honest. And I was thought, it's just really awesome. And I had been, for the last few years, going on a bit of journey myself, relatively new to Melbourne, had experienced some loneliness myself when I first came over. I've gone through a process of doing this Masters of Applied Positive Psychology, which is really a subfield of psych that looks at the science of well-being and how to really help people to lead a more happy and fulfilling life. And it was really transformational for me, and one of the key things in it was around the importance of connection. And so immediately when Chris told me his story, there was just that, wow, there's something special here. And so in true 100 Coffee Movement fashion, Chris invited me to a coffee, and we just chewed the fat, and we just got along and straight away, and there was real values alignment, and I was inspired by what Chris wanted to do and to build this out into something more, and jumped at the opportunity when he said, would you be interested in continuing to talk with me about it and see if we can do something?
Yeah. And what was the moment, Chris, I guess you realized, because you said you seem to be outgoing, dare I say, I always label extrovert, introvert. I know there's various sort of variations and all of that, and we always talk about how I'm more of an introvert and I'm much better one-on-one with people. But how did you notice, because you could have been around people, I'm assuming, in your job, it wasn't like you were physically isolated, but you were feeling it deep down here. And what did you have a literal moment where you went, wow, or was it more of a build-up where you just felt things were shallow?
I think it was a build-up, to be honest. I think that my friends started to notice some changes within me as well. I think that when people who you're really close to notice things, I think that's when you kind of realize yourself, hang on, I have a bit of a problem here. And I knew that things weren't going well for me. I knew that I felt disconnected. But it was kind of that really allowing myself to sit down and spend some time self-reflecting. I think that was really important, and being really honest with myself. And that chat with my best friend was really great. And I think that, everyone who has a best friend that they can talk to, or friends that they can talk to about these things really openly, it's really important. I really valued that so much, and still do. I think that it really helped me so much to be able to speak to them about that really openly and say, look, this is how I'm feeling. And we kind of really extrapolated that over, over the conversation. That, I realized I felt disconnected, and of course my solution was to meet 100 new people, and luckily it worked. But for other people, it might be reconnecting with friends or connecting with their work colleagues. It just depends on what situation. But for me, it was I don't think there was a specific moment as such, but there was certainly a period of time that
and did you I was going to ask Simon, yourself, what was your kind of then? Was yours more of a gradual thing that you just realized you weren't connected, or was it more you so a longer question, but I think I get my energy personally from being around more extroverted people. So there's kind of a pattern in my life where my wife definitely more extroverted than me. My best mates, I look back now and I go, not out of pure choice, but they've all been we've been chalk and cheese, like black and white. They've all been the extrovert, and I've lived through them, my kind of, and I've got energy from them, and they've probably been I don't know, calmed a little bit by me. So how did you how did you go about it? I guess, did you meet Chris and go, wow, were you just blown away by his energy, but didn't feel it yourself, and you thought, I want some of that? Or what was your, how did you go about it?
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, there was definitely a bit of that. Yeah. Chris, well, certainly since I've known him, is an extremely positive energy and very upbeat. And Chris is a take on the world kind of guy. And he makes those people who makes you want to buy in and be part of it.
Yes.
And I was definitely in a place in my life where I wasn't feeling as much connection as I wanted. And Chris kind of offered me something which gave me this platform to both try and give something back from what I'd learned through my study to continue to learn, but also to help connect more with someone. And Chris has been incredibly giving in that regard. So yeah, I think there was definitely an element of, I really want to be part of that. Like that, that just excites me and makes me feel more alive. Yeah.
And why, why, Chris, did you settle on coffee? Like, what was the moment you just went, okay, I'm going to do 100 coffees instead of, I don't know, like another example, but how did it come? Why that?
Oh, look, I'm in Melbourne, obviously. We're based in Melbourne. So, I think coffee was probably the natural choice for me in terms of the coffee culture here in Melbourne. If I was going to meet strangers and I was going to ask them to meet, then probably coffee was more appropriate in terms of just making people feel comfortable, that it wasn't, a dating thing or anything like that. There was no age for what I was trying to do. It was kind of like, look, I really just want to hear about your story, and there was no age to it at all. So I thought, what's the safest thing that I can do? What's something that people can meet me during work time as well? Yeah. Because obviously, if I was going to choose like wine or beer or whatever, I joked, but you'd have to be outside of work hours usually, and that sort of thing. So it was kind of a natural, a natural choice in terms of what people would be comfortable meeting me with, and where can I go to them? Because one of the rules of the 100 Coffee Project was that I always went to the person's location of choice.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's really important to go to people where they feel safe, and people shared some really personal things with me as well, and I think that's part of the reason why as well. Coffee was my choice.
And the practicalities of it, how did you just go on LinkedIn? Did you just go through your phone book? What did you do?
Yeah, it was mostly LinkedIn. I mean, the first 10 were 10 companies I was interested in learning more about. Yeah. So I reached out to people from there, and then and then it kind of went from there. They said, you should meet Terry, you should meet Simon, you should meet whoever. And kind of I was listening to podcasts, and I'd reach out to someone who'd spoken. I watched TED Talks and reached out to the speaker. And, it kind of just flowed into this, this whole project of different people. And I met some amazing people from across the world. And, I mean, they were all strangers, so it was all LinkedIn connection or like a cold email address. And there were plenty of no's for sure, or plenty of no replies. Like that was a big feature of this project, is really around, just reaching out to people, and, there'd be 5 people that would say no, but there'd be 10 that would say yes. Yeah. So that was kind of another thing that I really learned from this as well. Yeah.
So tell us about the first one you did. Do you remember it very well and the experience?
The first one, I mean, I say this a lot when I'm asked this question. The first one was not really transformational at all. It was kind of just like a coffee, and number 2 and 3 were very similar. Yeah. I think it was really coffee number 4 that was kind of the transformational one for me. But the first coffee was really, a mentor of mine suggested I meet this person. It was one of the companies that I wanted to learn more about. It was kind of a very casual coffee, and kind of went away from that thinking, what will this project be like? But I think one of the important things about the project was really maintaining the consistency as well. I think that when you do one coffee individually, of course, it might not change your life, or when you meet a new person, but when you meet 100 new people in 100 weeks, it was really powerful for me.
Yes.
And I think the self-reflection part of that as well, where every Sunday I would go and write about the project as well. And I'd write, what did I learn? What was I grateful for? And how can I apply it to my life? And I guess when you do that once, it could be really powerful, of course, if you meet the right person. But I think when you do that over 100 weeks, that's where I got the most benefit from. So, I mean, obviously happy to single out individual coffees and talk about like the what I learned from them, and particularly number 4 was transformational for me. But I think when you add them all up that I really got the most value from. It wasn't individual ones that, I mean, there are lots of stories, right? But it was more about the whole journey and the transformation that took me on, that really resonated with me personally.
Yeah. And I guess then, if there was one, what was the best one?
Yeah. So I mean, number 4. I mean, Steph. So I like I said, the first 3 were really quite not transformational. They were sort of just coffees, and I didn't really learn a great deal from the people, if I'm honest. But the coffee number 4 was really, really powerful, and she asked me a life-changing question. She asked me, how do your personal values align with your career? And so for me at the time, when I was doing these things that didn't align with my values, it was kind of more about not just my career. I took Steph's question and applied it to my life.
Yeah.
And I went home and wrote about her question, and on the left-hand side, I wrote down what were my values, what were the words that resonated with me, and then on the right-hand side, I wrote down the things I was doing in my life at the time. And that was kind of my roadmap for how I could kind of get back on track to what I really wanted to do. Coffee for number 4. And I've mentioned this to her many times, and we catch up and we still talk. And she doesn't realize like how powerful the question was, but it was just for me at that time, the way that she put it to me and how I applied it to my whole life, not just my career, that was the most powerful. And then across the remaining 96 coffees, and in many discussions since that, I think values alignment is a really powerful thing.
Yeah.
And I think that many of those people talked about, not working in jobs that align with their values, or a relationship that didn't align with their values and they weren't happy. But the people that did were the happiest. And we've really tried to build that in with Simon's expertise as well around the Masters of Positive Psychology and some of the other stuff that he's done around gratefulness and around values alignment as well. Yeah. And that plays a big part. And I'll workshop some programs now because, again, it was so powerful for me personally as well.
And I guess I'm just thinking, I had a question, but I was actually going to say coffee for me. Interestingly, as I said, I'm definitely better one-on-one with people. And when I first came to Australia 11 years ago, I'd never had like coffee meetings with anyone in the UK. Like it just wasn't kind of a done thing really. And then I got here and quickly realized a lot of things were done over coffee, even in Sydney. And, I turned up to one of my first coffee meetings with a doctor that I'd been working with in my day job. And I was petrified because I was kind of in a sales job effectively in healthcare, but didn't, again, introverted, turned up to this coffee and just treated it like it very sterile. There wasn't really much connection. I definitely didn't feel connection from it. They probably got that as well. But over the years, I just realized this was probably the best way to break down some barriers one-on-one with people and be open. And since I actually find, and it's no surprise, probably what you found, meeting people for the first time over coffee, some of the things that come out of that, I walk away like buzzing. And it's not just coffee, like I literally walk away buzzing because it seems to have opened up. When you truly connect with someone over that, I'll get more depth out of that than sometimes a conversation with people I know, or a coffee or a drink with someone I know. So I guess my question was going to be, I can't remember what my question was going to be, but it was basically, why do you think like coffee was a great connector for that, or was it just the excuse to be in front of people, or how did that work?
I think coffee's a medium for connection. I think that, again, similar to what I mentioned before around people being comfortable.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the times I met people during their work time and they would come out for a coffee or over their lunch break or in the morning before work. So it's kind of a safe space for people as well. I think that asking someone for a drink is fine, but it also has a different connotation in society. So, and that's fine also, like, appropriate when appropriate. But I think for my purpose, I think coffee was really like trying to create safety around what I was doing and being Melburnian, it's quite natural for coffee to be the thing you would ask someone to meet over, right? So
yeah,
similar to what you said. I mean, it was never really about the coffee. It was more about the stories that were shared and the really personal things that people shared with me. It's amazing what you'll share with strangers.
yeah,
And people talk to me about their relationships. They talk to me about, moving across the world for jobs and how, it didn't alarm their family and all this sort of thing that was really personal to someone you just met. And I think that there's a lot to that. But yeah, coffee was kind of, it seemed like the obvious choice for me now, but I guess at the time I didn't put a lot of thought into it.
yeah.
Other than I knew it would be safe for people, it would be during the day, and I could definitely go to them, and they were kind of really my criteria, and that's really as far as I went with that. So yeah.
And outside of that first coffee with anyone, or if it was just a solo coffee, how many sort of kept in touch, or did anyone ask you back? So did they feel that connected that they said, let's have another coffee, or?
Yeah, I mean, I probably. Look, I am friends with some of the people from the 100 Coffee Project. I have really good personal connections with some of them. My job last year at RMIT came from one of my 100 Coffees who introduced me to someone else who introduced me. So, yeah, I mean, many of them helped me. I'm sure I could reach out to lots of them. There are some that I spoke to once and never saw again. Some of them didn't know they were one of the coffees. Like, they just they didn't realize they were number 16 or whatever. So, but I think that, many of them I have kept in touch with, and some of them I would say are friends now. But most of them have become really like solid professional connections and people who would help me, and I can reach out to and ask for help or advice, and they're always happy to do that. So it's been really nice in that sense to make some friends and some new connections in that way.
Excellent. So tell us about then the transition from the 100 Coffees or the 100 Coffee Project into the movement, I guess, what it is now. How did you just finish it and go, okay, what do we do now? Or was there always that plan?
Yeah, so I think that there wasn't that plan, to be honest, no. I really, the project was going to finish and I was going to do 100 coffees and then what would I do? But I guess when I got to about 85, people were saying to me the other way, they were more interested in the project than talking about themselves.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, that's really interesting. It was actually my mum that said to me, you should conceptualize this, like you should write a book or you should, do something around this. And so I thought, I'm not going to write a book, but, and there's various reasons for that. But I thought, I really wanted to build something out. And I just finished an MBA at RMIT, so I was quite into kind of the startup space and business and how could I use the MBA to have an impact. That's why I did an MBA, because I wanted to have more of an impact in the world. So not related to this project, but also that kind of came from that. And I guess Simon can probably talk more about how it kind of came together.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So, story, isn't it? So when I met Chris, it was quite at the conceptual stage, and I think we actually went through a lot of iterations of what this could be. Was it actually just building Chris's story out and submitting the challenge to the public as well in a form of, hey, come and do the 100 Coffee Challenge and try and build a community around that? And we didn't end up going down that path for various reasons, primarily because we just felt we could have a stronger impact in other areas doing programs. Impact has always been the main driver and us kind of guiding star, wanting to work, face to face with people and try to bring evidence-based approaches and to help capacity build and give them skills that are practical and enable them to live a happier life and connect more with people. And so I sort of proposed various areas that we could look at from the studies I'd done, and we really sort of went through quite a collaborative design effort to say, for example, one of our events, we had a really strong theme around gratitude, and there's quite a lot of research around how gratitude is really expressing gratitude for others can really open us up a lot. And I had the pleasure of attending some workshops where I saw some pretty amazing techniques for getting people together and how you use the space in the room. And we really used that. It was quite powerful, actually. It was something really different. It's a very different, to go to I imagine it's a bit like this at your barbecues. Very different conversations to, say, a more standard, I don't know, meet-up event or something where you're at a pub and most people are kind of a bit shy. There's a few people who are kind of leading the conversation. And it's a bit jerky, and to kind of get someone in a safer space, and it still always amazes me. I always say, Chris, how it's just so funny if you get people in a room and you have someone at the front and say, "Hey, do this, guys," and suddenly there's not this sense of accountability for my actions.
Yeah.
It just opens up suddenly, and like, oh, well, I was told to do it, so it's fine. So if you say, "Oh, when you talk about something you're really grateful for in your life," it's a very different conversation. Well, what do you do for work and that kind of stuff. So there's a range of different areas that we focus on in our work, and we like to try and draw from different methodologies. Human-centered design, one thing we look at a lot, but positive psychology is kind of the foundation. There's things like strengths, which is really focusing what are you good at. Everybody's good at different things, right? And everybody has strengths, and how can you bring them to bear to help you connect better, for example. In context. So,
I like it's interesting. You mentioned the positive psychology, and despite working with healthcare professionals, knowing a little bit about mental health professionals and the sector, and experiencing myself, I went through a journey of, I guess, like my always I start from a negative point, and then I build it up, like it builds up. So something will be the end of the world first. And then now I know that process, and I'm going, I still see healthcare professionals for my challenges, but it's almost now, I used to think the connection with psychology, and I love to pathologize about it. I was like, surely when I go to, say, my psychologist or whatever, we're just going to talk about all this stuff, all the crap stuff that happened in the past, the 30 years previously. And that's kind of how you're conditioned when you watch. I've talked about it before, but movies and everything else that we think that experience is about. And the more I've spoke to, I first heard positive psychology a couple of years ago, and I went, I was like skeptical. I was like, no, that's just concentrating on, let's be happy and cheery and focus on this and not deal with all the other stuff. That's exactly how my skeptical brain saw it. And it's just been a gradual process of the more people I've connected with in mental health, healthcare, even professionals. The more I've read, the more I've listened to a podcast, the more I've met guys like you, it just comes up more and more and more and more. And even my psychologist says to me, he says, but we can go over all this stuff again, but it's not going to get us anywhere. Like, we want to empower you to move forward with that. Like, so, you do connect better with yourself, and you're not so, you do give yourself a break, and you do build up that energy to connect with others, because that's actually where I get my energy from, connecting with others and seeing others connect, I guess is a good sort of point. So I was curious to know, at the explain sort of what happens at a specific, I don't know, workshop or an event you do, like how you sort of go about it. How do you create that connection, I guess, or how do you encourage it?
Yeah, okay. So we had a really interesting, the first workshop we did, which had that heavy gratitude focus. So we kind of started with everyone in groups initially. So kind of building out from, let's share together in a pair. Right? So often you want to, got a big group of people, get them into pairs first in a safe space. Starting with sharing a story is always a really powerful way to start. So asking each other a question which you've been given permission to ask because you're kind of being guided by this facilitator. In this case, what might you be grateful for? Really enable people to just kind of get into the rhythm of it, right? And we did some really fun things. I mean, it's got a really kind of fancy term, but it's called psychodrama. It's actually the field. It's a type of psychology that actually uses elements of theatre to help enact out, maybe traumatic or stressful situations. It's actually used as a form of therapy. I haven't done it myself, but I was part of a workshop at a conference where a guy did it, and he helped me kind of build out this session. It was very giving. And so we kind of did it around gratitude and using that. So that's a really interesting, in that particular one, some techniques we used where sort of getting people to get in a circle, for example, and say, just have a bit of a look around and who's someone you think who looks really friendly, right? And then just going over and kind of just lightly touching on the shoulder and just telling them, what is it about that person that kind of, made you feel that way. And you do that with a few different exercises because essentially what you're trying to do is layer by layer build up the safety around just opening up and a bit closer. So it starts off maybe in a pair share, then it goes to a group, then it goes to more like self-selected and maybe a very small and appropriate amount of touch, which is not enforced. Just layering it. It's really fun. You don't think, but it is very intentional, and it just slowly opens people up. And by the end, they're just sharing some quite amazing stories. And it really, the kind of technique that we were using, it kind of sounds fancy, but it's called appreciative inquiry. But it's really kind of going, when was a time in your life when you connected really well with someone, right? So you kind of start by harvesting the past for things that went really well and trying to draw insights of what were you doing then? So you're kind of doing this natural kind of strengths thing of, oh, well, I was talking about this and we really connected because this way. And people just start to kind of naturally uncover and feel quite good about times in the past when they've actually had really good connections. And then you sort of take that to the next level and start looking at, well, how might that look like if you were going to connect with someone in future? And I came up with this concept of the golden question, which was almost like if you could ask, like, from one of these success stories in the past, if there was one question that you could ask someone to try and connect better with them, which seems to have worked really well, or you think it's just a great way to connect, what would it be? And then start to ask that your partner. So you're trying to sort of enable people to draw on their strengths from the past, harvest that, think about how they might apply that in the future, and then kind of test it in a safe environment and see how it went. And it gives them something to go forward with and test outside. And then we would give them a coffee voucher and stuff like that. But just the thing with positive psychology that I really like is, so humans, there's been a lot of research now. We have a kind of natural negativity bias, right? And that makes sense for a lot of reasons from an evolutionary perspective to always be scanning for danger. But in a modern setting, it's not always as helpful. No. And a lot of us have to work a bit harder to introduce the more positive. And it's not about happyology, but it's about seeing what is actually just the same, the other side of the same coin. Because you can always look at situations, there's always a negative way of interpreting it and a more positive way. And they're both true, they're just perspective. And so a lot of positive psychology, it's not saying anything wrong with traditional psychology. It's incredibly important. But what it is saying is we also need to look at what makes life worth living.
Definitely,
What makes people happy? How do we make them flourish? Not the other stuff's not good. It's great. It's very important. But it's more about going from -5 to 0. So how do I get from really bad to getting normal?
Yeah.
And psychology is a bit more about, well, how do we go more to +5 to going, really great. So
that really resonated when you were just saying it. Like, it made me connect even more. I was thinking about it, how those questions that you would ask, because I used to think that I would be really scared of asking those questions, but I've really surprised myself when I've been one-on-one with someone and we might have just met, or I know them through someone, or you soon feel that you ask that question. It's almost like a change in the small talk goes very quickly when you ask those big questions. And I don't understand why we don't do it more. Maybe we're scared of what the response might be, or but I was listening to something the other day, and it was about asking about basically blokes and mental health, asking them not, how you're going, whatever. It was more of an open thing of like, tell me about your week. And just a real simple thing like that. I can't remember where I heard it. It sounds so simple.
Yeah.
But even the way I frame it now to my friends, it will be much more like that rather than how's work been this week? How's this been? How's this been? And just moving on to the next thing, like not even delving like a little bit deeper. And I thought about if someone said, tell me about your week last week, the week before, God, I would have they would have told immediately I'd had a crap week, right? It would have been like, right, how do I get this out? And then I would have just gone for it. And we would have, now I'm very lucky that I have friends who do ask those questions now, and I do the same as well. I think it's really, you hit just a massive note there, the importance. The other thing also is about, positive psychology, or even just seeing the other side of the coin, as you put it. I had the same conversation with my psychologist yesterday, and we talked about, he said, look, 90% of the things you're doing in a day, you're doing great. The impact that you're having and with your kids. And he goes, but actually think about this. And he said, choose one of the most simplest things that you've done today, or that someone may have not done yet. That he goes, and have a laugh about it. He said, so maybe you're feeling a bit stressed in the morning, a little bit anxious, you're changing your son's nappy, and like to you, that's just an automatic like thing that you do without even thinking, and you just get on with it, and you get ready for school, and then you put them in the car, and then he said that all those little things along that journey that you've done, he said, are huge. Like those little things, if you just take some gratitude for them and like respect yourself for doing those little things, which not everyone can do, and some guys don't. He said, believe me, that those things will build up over the day. And he said, that's the way you've got to start building up those little increments. Don't just suddenly go into, oh my God, I'm so grateful for life. And, it's not, you've got to be realistic of how you're going to build that up gradually. And the way you describe the layers was brilliant. I love that.
Did you want to add anything, Chris?
No, that's good.
Yeah, no, it really resonated. I think it will with a lot of people as well. So I was more curious as well, just to find out, I guess, we talk about connection broadly, and, sometimes disconnecting to connect. For some people, connection doesn't physically mean being with someone or talking to someone. I know it certainly doesn't for me sometimes. But what does, I guess, connection mean to both of you personally? Or how would you describe connection to you?
Yeah, I think connection for me, look, a lot of my thoughts around connection really are around connecting with yourself in terms of from a values perspective. And I think it's no coincidence that I was asked that question by Steph, coffee number 4, around values. And when I eventually did align my values with what I was doing, I felt more connected. Yeah. And I think that connection, and often we talk about, you have to, you have to look within yourself first before you can, have good relationships with others. And there's a lot of talk around in psychology around how your relationship with yourself reflects on your relationship with others as well. You're kind of a shadow of that. So, I think for me, that's kind of similar with connection. I think that when I feel more connected with myself, I feel more connected with others. And when I'm being true to my own values, and I feel it's easy to connect with others. I am very extroverted. So connection for me is always around, a lot of having a lot of people around. But I think that comes from my values as well. So, Simon?
Excellent. What do you think, Sam?
So absolutely agree with that. The bit I'd add, for me, so connection is not necessarily about the number of people or the frequency. It's just about the quality. And for me, it's really about the kind of unarmoring of the heart. That sounds a bit maybe cheesy, but it's really just it's when you can find people who you can just kind of take the armor off and just be real and be a bit vulnerable. Like connection, really deep connection is really underpinned by this ability to just open up and be a bit vulnerable. And it's amazing what comes back, because most people, most of us, we go around and we're kind of in society and we've got the shield up, we're kind of ready for work. And to your point around the conversations, oh, how's your weekend? Yeah, good. How's yours? Yeah, good. Oh, that's good. Good. All right, see you later. Good. And you literally have these conversations in the kitchen. And you're like, it's sort of the opposite of connecting. But it's when you kind of, often when you share something about yourself and you open up a bit, it's amazing what comes back, because it's kind of the signal to the other person, like, I can't stay, I can open up a bit. Because so for me, that's the kind of really, at least trying to help people to have a few of those in life. I want to say, or even one. You don't need necessarily that many.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think that on that point as well, I think you need different groups in your life as well.
Yeah.
You need some friends that you can be like that with. You need some friends that are just like how was your weekend? Yeah, good. Like, and I think you need that balance as well. I think that there's kind of different levels of connection.
Yeah.
And that having those different layers and different friend groups that you do go to for different things, or I think that's really important also, and having diversified friend groups also.
No, I agree. I think I've realised that recently. I did my classic look at it as a negative originally, but it was, I'd never felt fully connected to this one group, like a type of group. I'd always sat in the middle, and I always thought, I had best friends, but was never really that connected to them.
Yep.
And then when I came to Australia, I had no problem just coming and then being on my own, because I enjoyed, I just thought, oh, that's how I am and everything else. But actually look back the last 10 years of the connections that have been built, they've been across every possible thing you can imagine, corporate stuff, more full on things like that, across my sort of sporting networks, across the charity work we've done, across disadvantaged people, you name it. And I look at it now and I go, yeah, I think that's why I feel connected now. Yeah, I feel like I can have those conversations with someone to do with a charity, if we're pitching for sponsorship money or something, whatever it is, like a corporate event, or I'm up in front of people doing it. And then right down to the fact that one of our barbecues, someone coming to me and I'm telling my story over the barbecue and keeping it, quite casual, and they you can almost see, like, in their brain, it's wearing away, and then they come back to me at the end and they tell me a little bit about their story. They don't just, blurt it out, but they just say, oh, by the way, that was really cool, one-on-one. And you can see their shoulders, like they come there, a little bit down, they go away with, I guarantee, feeling connected from that. You can see it in someone, So I think that's really important. Being able to realize that not every conversation needs to be deep, but at the same time, it's very healthy to have the ones you can have the laugh with and the banter, and have that new football team I've joined and turn up and like the banter already is, I miss that. We do talk about some stuff a little bit deeper one-on-one, but it's normally just ridiculous stuff. And it's good. It's really good to have that.
Very important.
I think it's brilliant. And I guess, what's your, let's say advice, but what would you say to people that are lacking connection in whatever realm it might be at the moment, and they feel they want it, they feel that maybe they're capable of doing it, but they just haven't taken that step yet? Both of you, what's your thoughts on how would you suggest to them to go about it? Yeah, tricky one.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers to that, but I think at the most practical level, I think a couple of things. One, starting with yourself and being clear on your values. What are things that are important to you? So that's your kind of guiding compass. Then based on that, where can I find activities or meet people in those spheres? So if I'm really passionate about sport, might be a sporting club. If it's around giving back to community, maybe it's volunteering. Volunteering is a fantastic way to meet people and to actually feel good. So I think there's one element of the more kind of seeking events type approach. I think there's similar to what Chris did, and in a similar vein, taking your values and maybe aspirations or key goals and using tools like LinkedIn, reach out to people. I listened to your TED talk. I did this, that. Because it will often domino effect until you're meeting other people. And then the other thing I think is starting small, but slowly building into just having more casual, incidental conversations, going out of your way. So one of the things I've commented on Chris, and it is something he does intentionally, but Chris goes out of his way to say hello to people, to say thank you every time he leaves. They're these kind of little interactions, but they add up and they build momentum. And it's something that I noticed very quickly in Chris, and I've tried to start adopting more in my own life, because it's just kind of these little foundation blocks. And often, not every time, but often what happens is maybe that someone gives you a bit more and the conversation starts a bit more, and maybe it's just a few sentences, but occasionally it's more. And if you continue to go to a cafe, for example, it sort of slowly builds, and it can be really powerful. Might not necessarily end up being your best friend, but again, it's kind of working a muscle. So you just start to get into this habit of being more and more open over time, and more kind of just throwing out the connection beacon, as it were, and going, hey, how you going? You might not get much back, but it's a lot of it is, well, to a degree, it's a numbers game. There is, you really just got to keep putting yourself out there, and it will come. And what you put out, the more positive you are, and the people will feel it. So
100%.
That would be my...
obviously I agree with all that. And I think that to add on to that as well, one of the reasons why I do that is because I think that we really value convenience over connection now as a society.
Definitely.
I think that we make many choices in our life to really value convenience. For example, we can use the self-serve at Woolworths or Coles. We don't need to speak to a person. We can skip the coffee line now. There's an app. We can skip the coffee line, right? We can order the coffee 20 minutes in advance, and we can be there in 20 minutes with our headphones in. We walk up, we take it off the barista, and we don't say hello or anything, right? And online dating has changed. And so many things. None of these things are bad, obviously. They're all great, and they make our lives easier. But I think that really having a look at if people are lacking connection and saying, well, what things am I doing that are making my life more convenient, and how are these things eroding face-to-face connection? Because realistically, like, the developers of these apps and these things are sitting in Silicon Valley or wherever they are, usually San Francisco, and they're saying, we're really going to make money from people being too busy. But actually, we're not too busy to connect. It's just this like social construct around that we're always too busy, so therefore we need more convenience. And I think that that's the mindset that really needs to change. And I think that it will become especially more prevalent over the next 5 to 10 years, 15 years as technology advances even more. And you think about most innovations now are around how do we make someone's life more convenient? But more often than not, it's at the expense of, you and I having a conversation. So, and technology is great. It's an enabler for connection, and all those things are an enabler for connection. But when you add them all up, and I think that a lot of us do this, it's really about saying, hang on a minute, let's challenge some of those social norms, and let's challenge these social constructs around that we need our lives to be more convenient. Let's think about, well, actually, can I go to the self-serve at Woolworths and can I know the person's name? And then, as Simon said, over that course of the year, you see that person, 50 times or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're shopping, if you go once a week, probably, you'll see them less than that. And then that person, you then talk to them, and then maybe you see them again somewhere else, and then suddenly you're talking, and then you kind of get to know them, and you get to really see, well, actually, they're not just that person working at Woolworths. This is a person who's studying, or they're doing this or whatever, or then they tell you something really interesting, and you kind of think, wow, that's really interesting, because a lot of the stuff, we haven't touched on it tonight, but is that everyone has a story, and that really resonated with me in the 100 Coffee Project, and it resonates with us in the work that we're doing, is that whoever it is, they all have a story, right? So the barista, and I've met some amazing people from doing what Simon said around just saying thank you, or turning around and saying, oh, thanks very much, goodbye. And then people kind of engage with you, and especially overseas sometimes, and you kind of say, oh, where are you from? And then you get into this big conversation about someone's trip to Australia when they were a backpacker or whatever, and then you kind of, next minute you're having a beer with them that night, and it's kind of like really interesting how that works. So I think that, like Simon said, being open to connection, but also giving more first and saying, I'm going to connect with you. And even if other people ignore you, and I get ignored all the time, don't worry. It happens to me a lot. And some people look at me and say, who is this guy? Like, why is he talking to me?
Yeah.
And that's fine also. It doesn't bother me, because that's fine. People can be too busy or whatever, or not everyone wants to connect at the same time. So, but more often than not, I find that people do want to connect, and they'll say, oh, how's your day going? Blah, blah, blah. And then we'll end up in this big conversation about things. And it's really, I think that really being open, like Simon said, being approachable, understanding your values, and some practical solutions around, I'm really interested in sport, so I'm going to go and join a local soccer club, or I'm going to I'm going to join, a local hockey club or whatever it might be, or I'm studying, so I'm going to find out about the university sports club. That's a very practical solution. But I think a day-to-day thing that we can all do is really challenge the convenience over connection mindset and really incorporate that. I'm always going to give more. I'm always going to try and connect more with people. And
I like the way you described that, because it put it in my head as well. When I describe things that I do as an activity to get my mental health on track or to do regularly. So I described this to my psychologist and I said, I'm back playing football. I'm booking with you. I'm seeing my GP regularly. I'm doing X, Y, Z. I'm reading a little bit, but I'm going to make sure I read on and he stopped me and said, they're all activities. He said, you might think that they're the things that are going to keep your mental health on track, or he said, that's fine, but these were all very scheduled things. And I just thought, that'd be, I didn't really think any deeper than that. And the way you described the two different things, the actual face-to-face connection, asking those questions. Two things. WhatsApp is just the bane of my life. The best and worst thing that it can be. I can chat to my family in the UK instantly every day. Photos of my boys, everything all goes on. I know everything that's going on instantly. The other side of that is you're in 20 groups on there, be it football teams, be it friend groups, be it whatever. And my default, when I haven't spoke to a close mate, I was best man at one of my best mates' weddings a couple of years ago. But we're just so busy, even though we work Sydney CBD most of the time, and we could easily catch up. We just caught ourselves not connecting properly. And then I went to go to WhatsApp him. I was like, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. And I said, I've got to call him. And by pure happen chance, the other morning, walked past each other, almost missed each other. As he was going one way, I was going the other, and just grabbed him, and we were like, right, put it in the diary now, coffee tomorrow morning, we did. And that way it was brilliant. It just reinforced for me. So that's one thing. But the other thing was, you mentioned about getting into sort of those more deeper conversations and stories about people. When I'm getting my hair cut, by a lady who cuts my hair, we chat just about everything, family, all of her family's history. It's absolutely amazing. Because she's Aussie, but a Greek background and Orthodox, and she started telling me about that and about her husband and how the family fell out and why they moved to Australia and the wedding, and it was brilliant. And we just chat, we could sit there forever talking about these things. And she reinforced values about family for me when I say, because she sees that my boys are normally waiting, or one of them's getting his hair cut by someone else, and she says, she just literally looks me in the eye and stops and says, spend as much time as you can with your boys. Do not take it for granted, blah, 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 blah. And it always hits me every time I chat to her about stuff like that. And the day she wasn't there, I got another lady who wasn't that talkative at all. But once we got chatting, and I said, so what do you do? And she was from Brazil originally. And she said, well, actually, and she just kind of came out and said, I used to be a dancer on TV there, came here thinking it would be the great life, had a child, split up with my husband. Now I'm on, and it was just a story. And but really my passion is dancing and I want to get back to it. And that was incredible. I walked away from that. I gave her a massive tip at Christmas. I was it just made me feel wow, hearing someone else's story. She's not just, the lady cutting my hair. And that was brilliant. So you touched on a couple of things there, which were really important.
There's one thing I want to add, and I think you touched on it, and it's, Chris and I talk about a lot. It's giving first.
Yes.
And I think one of the most powerful ways, if it's someone you don't know, it's a public place, is always to ask questions of them and to try and genuinely be curious. Don't expect too much, but how's your day going? And you might pick something up, they might give you a little bit more. Or what do you do for work? Oh, they might give you I just work here. Okay, that's interesting. I don't know much about that. That's often how you just sort of slowly start to open it up, and then you get these tidbits that you kind of go off into little tangents. So I always, when I think about it, it's don't less feel the pressure to try and share something about me, and more make it about the person and learning about them and trying to be genuinely interested. And everyone has a story, that kind of philosophy. Yeah.
No, absolutely. There's so much stuff that we talked about resonated and similar themes, right? I love it. So what's next for the the 100 Coffee Movement? What's happening in the next, over this to 2020? What's the plans?
Yeah, well, the plans are to keep doing workshops, programs. Really to, like Simon said earlier, our biggest thing is around impact and having an impact on as many people as we can, partnering with as many organisations as we can. We've got a workshop coming up with Kazi Victoria, who work with migrants and refugees in Melbourne around building connections. So they work specifically with them around employability skills, but we're coming into that from a building connections perspective. So, yeah, we really want to work with as many people as we can, really build out our programs, test what we're doing, test our assumptions, and ultimately, have as much impact as possible. I think that's the biggest thing for us is whatever we do with this and however big this gets, hopefully very big, it's really all about impact first and remembering why we're doing this and, trying to have fun while we're doing it too. We're very lucky to have a great third team member and lots of other people who help us who isn't on tonight, Ben. So we'll give him a shout out as well. He's been really great with our website and our graphic design and everything, and a lot of other people who give us advice also. So I'm really grateful for all of that support as well. I mean, so I think really continuing to build out those programs and workshops and like I said, I mean, have as much impact as we can and continue to enjoy what we're doing and really have fun and have fun and impact really is what my goals for this year. But that's.
I think it's testament to that you mentioned about other people being involved, like, behind the scenes. I have the same, like there's me, obviously, and it used to be me doing a lot of it, but the amount of people that buy into the impact and have come our way and approached us to help. And there's nothing better than that when you see, people doing that, like our barbecue hosts, like the people who help me. And I reckon we've got maybe 40, 50 people now that are behind the scenes doing something in some aspect and more people wanting to help. So I'm sure you guys will be exactly the same. When people buy into that, it's incredible. Look, I'd love to wrap it up there, guys. Almost on the hour, but where can everyone find out more about you?
Yeah, so we're on LinkedIn and Facebook under 100 Coffee Movement. If anyone wants to reach out to me personally, then I'm more than happy to. If you come to Melbourne, I'll have a coffee with you.
I'm going to take you up on that. I'm going to be there very soon, so we'll chat afterwards.
Always. Anyone who wants to catch up or ask any questions or keep in touch with what we're doing, then Chris Hope is obviously my name and on LinkedIn, and I'm sure Simon would as well. So, if you want to keep in touch with what we're doing, then, best way is either through our website, which is 100coffeemovement.com, or, through our LinkedIn or Facebook pages where we post what we're up to. So, and either of us will connect with you on LinkedIn as well.
Love it. Look, thank you so much for your time, guys. Really appreciate it. It's been brilliant. Lots for me to think about, and I don't think it'll be the last time we chat or connect. So appreciate it. Thanks for everyone who tuned in. We'll obviously reshare this as well, and I'll get it out to my networks tomorrow, and we'll reshare across the Facebook page and everything else. I think this will be a really good watch for everyone. So appreciate it. Take care, guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.